Radio TV Phono Nut here, and we have an unboxing, a radio that was purchased off of eBay, which is an event that's occurring way less frequently than what it used to, but this is one that used to have one like it years ago, and I found one that looks in decent shape, or I hope it's still in decent shape, for a reasonable price, so I bought it. Yeah, FedEx got this from North Carolina to Mississippi in 2 days, but meanwhile the post office is still pulling their shenanigans. I've got a few CDs and books and tapes that are just languishing away in Memphis, Tennessee, media mail shipping. One of those items has been sitting in Memphis for 2.5 weeks. Now, I know media mail is given the least amount of priority, but 2.5 weeks sitting in Memphis, what's wrong with you guys? There's absolutely no excuse for that. In fact, I bought a CD last night off of eBay, and I opted to pay the few dollars extra to have it shipped first class. Now, there's no guarantee that I'm going to get first class service, but at least there's a chance I will, and I'm about to the point that if media mail is the only option, then I'm not gonna bother with it. All right, let me take our scissors and open this up and see what we got. You know, these lovely, what I call the Amazon air bags, air cushioners. But if they was packing in true Amazon fashion, they would have just thrown one of these in the box and called it done. I mean, not packed ultra great, but still better than a lot of the stuff I've gotten from eBay sellers, and I realized that it wouldn't take much to outdo some of these eBay sellers. And here's what we have: a little wooden Emerson radio from about 1947. These came in 2 varieties, an octal tube version and a miniature tube version. I sort of hope this is the octal tube version. The one I had years ago was missing the dial cover, and that's the reason I got rid of it. But as I recall, it was a decent playing radio. Now this one, all it needs is a good cleaning, and I think it'll be presentable. The person selling it claimed they got it at an estate sale, and the people told them that they bought the radio brand new, and they said it plays. Now, you know, I take that with a grain of salt. Probably not going to be doing much with this right now, because other day I did something really stupid. I was out doing some yard work and wasn't wearing gloves, which was a really stupid move on my part. And apparently I got tangled up in something poisonous, and now I've got blisters all over my hands. So makes it very cumbersome trying to do anything with blisters all over your hands. So hopefully those will clear up pretty soon, and I can get back to doing something. Okay, this is a model 541, and I can see it uses octal tubes. Just seems like when radios went from octal tubes to miniature tubes, and from the full-sized IF transformers down to those little slug-tuned problematic IF transformers, that's really when the quality started going to pot. Alright, just for the heck of it, I'm going to do a no-no and take it in here and plug it in and see what happens. Alright, here goes nothing. Let's make everybody cringe.
carbon gone.
Well, it plays and there's very little filter hum.
These people are fresh caught seafood, salmon scallops. The bomb time to bring it over to the plane, you know, you're standing there. Because when you're in the air, it is a beating. She makes.
And in the process of removing the chassis, I can tell that someone's already been in this because of the mounting screws here. This screw here has a slot for a flat blade screwdriver where the other two do not, so that tells me someone has been in this. But yeah, as far as my little allergic reaction, I'm about to determine that all I've got to do is just walk past something that's green and I'm going to break out. Oh yeah, and mosquitoes think I'm sexy too. As far as the eBay thing, I'm finding less and less radios that are worth buying on there, and I think part of that is due to a lot of people are bailing out because of this managed payments thing where eBay wants your bank account number and social security number. I mean, heck, eBay can't even get their search engine to work right. What makes you think they should be trusted to keep your financial information secure? And I think another thing that's going to cause people to bail on eBay is that new $600 tax threshold that's going into effect next year. I mean, yeah, established businesses that are already set up for that, it won't be a problem, but your average hobby seller is not going to go through all that bull crap just to sell a few unwanted items. Okay, top side of the chassis, plenty of dirt to clean off. We still have our 5 Emerson branded tubes. Okay, I'm sure the electrolytic filter has been replaced at some point. Let's see if it has. No, maybe not. Well, just at first glance, this thing looks pretty much all original under here. So we had an airline record player that basically worked on all original parts from 1948. It looks like we're going to follow that up with an Emerson radio from about the same time period that still works relatively well on all original parts. So when I have time to fool with this, I will go back in it and we'll give it a proper electrical overhaul before putting this into full-time service. But yeah, once again, it's amazing to have something that's 73, 74 years old and looks to be pretty much untouched and still works reasonably well. Okay, got the Emerson tore apart on the workbench and the filter capacitor removed. It's a Deal 50. Section 1 is reading 67. I bet if I were to check it for leakage, it would probably show a little leakage. Maybe we'll do that later. And the second section is checking 75. Okay, here are the filters replaced. Not my usual method of doing it. Normally I'd put a terminal strip right here and just put the caps onto the terminal strip, but I'm out of terminal strips, so it's kind of hard to use what I don't have. So we insulated the positive leads with wire insulation, soldered them to their respective tube socket terminals, put some wire insulation over the negative leads, attached the 2 negative leads together and soldered them, connected our lead wire that needs to go over to this negative terminal to the junction on the capacitors, ran some heat shrink tubing over the joint and connected them up that way. And that's maybe not quite as neat as the terminal strip method, but at least everything's insulated and we don't have to worry about anything shorting out. So let's juice this and make sure it's still doing at least what it was doing before. Okay, there it is. Sounds pretty good. Alright, here are the 3 paper capacitors that you just want to change. Technically you should change every paper cap in here, but if you're one of those that wants to be cheap, don't be this cheap. At least change these 3 right here because they have high voltage on them. This one here is the plate bypass capacitor for the audio output tube. If it shorts, it could possibly take out the audio output transformer. This capacitor here couples the plate of the 12SQ7 to the control grid of the audio output tube. If it becomes leaky or shorted, it will cause a positive DC voltage to be placed on the control grid of the output tube, which will cause the tube to overconduct, which in turn will cause destruction of the tube and possible destruction of the audio output transformer. This capacitor here is the one that's wired across the AC power line. Its purpose is to provide RF decoupling to keep interference to a minimum. If it shorts, it'll just blow up or possibly blow up your rectifier tube depending on exactly how it's wired. I haven't looked close enough at this one, but we'll want to replace that one with an appropriate AC rated safety capacitor. I was cutting this coupling capacitor loose for the audio output tube. It looks to be factory original, but I noticed they have the outside foil connected to the control grid of the audio output tube. Now, typically your outside foil end of a capacitor is supposed to connect to the point of lowest impedance in the circuit, which would be the plate of the 12SQ7. Well, obviously in this case it didn't matter. It went 70-something years and seemed to work okay, so that just goes to show that even from the factory you'll sometimes find that whoever was assembling the radio would stick a capacitor in backwards. Now in this case, reversing the polarity of a paper capacitor is not going to cause anything catastrophic to happen. In many cases, it won't cause anything at all to happen, but occasionally a capacitor oriented in the circuit incorrectly will cause oscillation and interference to get into a circuit, but you know, that don't happen much, probably very rare. Alright, and there's our new coupling capacitor, and I had no choice but to J-hook that one in place, because the leads on the new part were not long enough to reach over to the respective terminals where the capacitor soldered to.
Top of the 6. Number 1.
Alright, we're still in good shape.
Against agents found to have committed any type of insurance. Incident reinforced, you never know what. 1986, they've helped millions save up to 60% of their life insurance by comparing the rates and features of operated life insurance products. A healthy 50.
No distant reception yet, but we probably need to touch the alignment up on this. Alright, our capacitors that remain, this one connects between the chassis and circuit ground as a decoupling capacitor. Probably need to get rid of that one for safety reasons. This one here is the AVC filter capacitor. No dangers if it fails, but it can mess up the AVC circuit if it gets leaky. This one here couples the volume control to the grid of the 12SQ7 first audio tube, and its purpose is to keep any DC off of that grid. And then we have this one other capacitor here that's an RF bypass. Oftentimes this is a mica capacitor. In this particular set, it's a paper capacitor that connects between the plate of the 12SQ7 and ground. Its purpose is to strip off any RF that happens to be on the plate to keep it out of the audio output stage. Okay, there they're all replaced, and yes, some of these I indeed J-hooked, which is normally what I don't do, but kind of not wanting to spend a lot of time on this, so I'm going to get it out of here in sort of a hurry. But I still tried to be neat with it. Alright, so now I think all we need to do is clean up the chassis and do a little alignment on it, and it ought to be ready to go back in the cabinet. Got all this white powder on here. Is this somebody's cocaine stash that blew up inside the radio, or is it cadmium sulfide or whatever kind of the plating is that's breaking down? I think it's the chassis plating breaking down, so tomorrow we'll get this outside and carefully clean it up and then do an alignment on it and then put it back in the cabinet, and that's that. Alright, it's still playing. That's a good sign. Now it does seem to sound a little bit tinnier than it did before, and that really doesn't surprise me, and the reason for that is because with those leaky capacitors, particularly the one that was used for RF bypass between the plate of the first audio tube and ground and the plate bypass capacitor, when those become leaky, they can affect your audio as far as shunting off some of the high end of your audio too. So when you replace them with capacitors that are actually good, you'll notice your tonal quality change.
Yep, and I definitely went into my savings.
And sometimes not for the better. That's why a lot of guys prefer to keep old original capacitors in their amplifiers, because of the tonal quality the old capacitors give. But I mean, what are you trading off? You're trading off tonal quality that more suits your liking to capacitors that are slowly self-destructing your amplifier. And me personally, I'd rather go with capacitors that won't self-destruct my amplifier and, you know, go at it that way and deal with the way it sounds.
These kids that are going to go into agriculture.
Okay, I said we checked this filter capacitor for leakage on the old school tester. It's reading about 75 microfarad, which is about what it read on the modern meter. Let's see about leakage. Yeah, you see the light's taking a long time to go away. It could be a lot worse, but it could be better too. Alright, section number 2. You see that light staying on for an extended period of time. Actually, that one's staying on longer than the first section did. So yeah, that capacitor is indeed leaky. Alright, I'm going to show you what a new 47 tests like. Pretty much test right on the money as far as value. Now let's test it for leakage on the 20 volt setting, and you can bet the light will probably just flash and go away. See what I mean? Now let's check it on 200 volts. These are 250 volt rated capacitors. See how quick that came on and went off? It's the way it's supposed to do. Alright, AVC filter. Leaky, but could be a whole lot worse. Still needed to go though. Alright, chassis decoupling and isolation. Yeah, that one's pretty leaky. Even at 20 volts, it's flashing like crazy. Alright, 002, which I think is the volume control coupling capacitor, not getting a very well defined eye opening, so you can bet this one's leaky or open. Yeah, leaking at 400 volts, which there's not going to be that much voltage applied to it in circuits. Alright, 500 Mickey Mouse RF bypass for the 12SQ7. And it looks to be in pretty good shape, actually. Alright, the grid coupler for the audio output tube. Yeah, leaky. Not nearly as bad as it could be, but still leaky. Plate bypass for the output tube, very leaky, even at 20 volts. And lastly, the AC line decoupling capacitor. leaky. So this just goes to show that even with leaky capacitors, a radio will often play and may seem to play pretty good, but the whole time it's playing, the condition of the capacitors are just getting worse and worse and worse, and slowly stressing the other parts in your radio, and sooner or later something's probably going to happen that you don't want to happen. So best to go ahead and take care of the problem first before it happens.
Which one's Grace? Like, Dad, they're not identical. They're not close to identical.
Alright, we're about done with this one. I did a few things off the camera. Really no need in showing it. This radio really wasn't anything out of the ordinary to get going. Just capacitors, and the tremors on the IF cans were way off, so I think we know what someone did when they went in this thing. They went in to twist the screws around. So we got that straightened back out. I cleaned the chassis up, got it looking a lot better. The speaker had a rubbing voice coil, and I think that was due to crap in the air gap. I just simply sprayed some contact cleaner down in it and then turned the radio on full blast with the chassis laying on its face with the speaker facing down, and after a while that dislodged all the crap and it sounds fine now. I really think this is probably a lower hours radio, judging by all the original Emerson tubes still being present and the lack of previous repair work that had been done.
Team, so when they started to get down, even though he's playing well. But I just now rolls a little bit reversed. Coaching is a blast. It is an up and down journey, but it is. I would
turn our light off.
Coach my.
There's 670 coming in rather faintly, which is about all that station will give us anymore. So yeah, I'm picking up, considering it's summertime and the time of day it is, I'm picking up about anything I'm capable of picking up out here. And this radio does sound better inside of the wooden cabinet, which is no surprise.
Female head coach in NBA history.
I believe 1390 has improved their audio quality some. You remember me complaining about it. It's still pretty loud in comparison to the other stations, but it doesn't seem to be as distorted as it was.
Yeah, you need to get him something new for Father's Day. A DSC 6-blade razor is perfect. Got the extra close, precise shape.
If you're gonna shame, there's nothing on
do it right. You want to have
nothing on local AM that I care to hear. And look what I found. I don't know what happened to one of the knobs off of it. Really the least of my worries, but I found my little SS Tran AMT 3000 transmitter that I built a few years back. Unfortunately, the company is no longer in business, but at the time this was one of the better AM Part 15 transmitters. It's in the affordable class range. Don't know what happened to the wall wart. I can find a wall wart somewhere to run this, but yeah, we need to put this thing online and get some decent AM transmitted throughout the house. On my computer, I've probably got about 8,000 songs on there from the 1920s up through the early 70s, and I'm constantly adding more, so probably what I'm going to end up doing is I'm probably going to end up buying a new computer before long, and the old one is going to end up being the playout computer for our AM entertainment. For the time being, we'll just run the computer through a little Radio Shack mixer that I have, and then run the output of the mixer to this transmitter. And of course, we can connect some more audio sources to the mixer too. And then when time and money and space permits, I've got some radio station equipment, as in turntables and a old console, old RCA tube-type audio console, and some cart machines, and maybe one or two other things that I plan on fixing up and putting into service. I know I've been talking about that for years, just had never gotten around to getting it done yet, but maybe one day I will. But I know this local AM situation is pathetic, and if the big boys are not going to give us something that I want to hear, then I'm just going to have to give myself something that I want to hear. And one thing I will not do is add a Bluetooth module to the inside of my radios. I know a lot of people do it. If that's what you want to do and that floats your boat, then that's fine and good. But I like to keep these radios as original as possible. And why add a Bluetooth module whenever I can use an AM transmitter to broadcast whatever I want to them? If I wanted to listen to something through a modern Bluetooth medium, I'd just go to Walmart and buy a Chinesium 666 Bluetooth receiver and all that good stuff, and transmitter and what have you, and be done with it.
Cyber safety. Keep an eye on the devices that are brought into...
And to talk about all the Russian hacking and the ransomware, I had a dream a while back that they hacked into some of the radio stations and got into their playout computers and caused the stations to play nothing but Yoko Ono 24/7. See, that's what you get, guys, for firing all of the DJs that played records and CDs manually and replacing them with a computer system.
On the line in a battle of the North against the South, the top each division go head-to-head in the Mega Bowl. The hard-hitting action begins.
Of course, I would never condone anything like that, but part of me would find it comical if they hacked into some of these big giant radio stations that have pretty much ruined radio. You know, the big media conglomerates that buy up all the radio stations and run them into the ground, such as iHeart and Cumulus and et cetera, et cetera.
You start talking about something and you just decide, I know we had planned what we want to talk about with Coach King.
All right, that's about all I've got for this one. We'll get off of here and
overwhelmed by text.
Hopefully the next one will be something more in depth.